So who wants to talk about searing pools of unending fire? Nobody? All right, well, we're going to talk about it anyway. To be fair, the first part of my homily isn't even mine. It comes from Father Ed. He was a priest at the Redemptorist Retreat Center in Oconomowoc. I believe he's somewhere in Arizona now. And for daily mass, he actually happened to have this gospel reading. And his entire homily was one question. The rich man burning in a lake of unending fire. Is he in hell or is he in purgatory? The answer is absolutely, most definitely purgatory. It cannot be otherwise, given the details of that story and what we know about hell. He's in purgatory because he has concern for his brothers. He has love for his brothers. And love cannot exist in hell. No matter how little love there may actually be, if someone's got love in their heart, they cannot remain in hell forever. So that rich man, it's not good to be him, but he's on his way. His situation is not hopeless because the love he has for his brothers will eventually rise him out of the torment he's in. It's just going to take longer than it had to take. As adults, taking our faith seriously, we have to look at heaven, hell, and purgatory with a mature eye. It's not about pools of fire, and it's not about fluffy clouds and harps. Heaven and hell are spiritual states that are dependent upon our relation or our rejection of God. To truly be in heaven is to be in perfect relation with God. And to be in hell is to absolutely reject God fully and completely. And given that God is love, to be in hell, it's to exist in a place completely absent of all love. We should fear that. We should do everything in our power to be better than that through the grace of God. So to give you a little bit of modern practicality with this whole heaven and hell business, I'm going to tell you what I told some guy on the internet. I always like that as a lead-in. Like, what does that mean? This goes way back a few years. I was posting on a number of internet forums because I was working third shift, and frankly, I just had the time for that sort of thing. And I was one of a few people that identified as a practicing Catholic. So as you might imagine, I was very frequently challenged in matters of faith and morals. Well, one day, someone asked an excellent question. Do you believe that those responsible for 9/11 are in hell? And how do you reconcile that with the fact that they did what they did to get into heaven according to what they believe? Seriously, that's a really good question. To answer it honestly, though, we need to first establish the circumstances. So let's assume, for the sake of argument, that they were all Muslim and that they did in fact intend to get into paradise. And let's further assume that they were not drugged or brainwashed or anything like that. They were truly responsible for their own actions. Now, I think all of those details are a little hard to prove one way or another, and we should be careful not jumping to conclusions. But for the sake of a hypothetical question, let's take that to be the case. So with that in mind, I don't have a clue what their surroundings are like. Hey, maybe it's fire and brimstone. Maybe it's a simple plain room. Maybe they're watching their lives over again on TV. Doesn't matter. I have nothing to say about that. It does not matter. Here's what matters. If there's an afterlife, And if there is a judgment of the dead, and as Catholics we most certainly believe in both of those things, if that's the case, then those responsible for 9/11, they have to face the fact that they did a lot of damage in their life. They have to come to terms with the fact that they are directly responsible for the deaths of many people, and they're indirectly responsible for the deaths of many more, given the consequences of 9/11. Whether you're a Muslim, a Catholic, or otherwise, you don't get to skip that step. Because when we talk about when we talk about the judgment of the dead, we mean that you have to look at your whole life, the good parts and the bad parts alike. You can't look away, you can't ignore it, and you can't lie to yourself. That's what the judgment of the dead is, a cold, hard look at your life. I don't believe that anyone can get into heaven under those circumstances. The road to heaven is not paved in sin, and taking multiple innocent lives is definitely a mortal sin. So heaven is off the table for them. It is not possible. The fact that they believed that they were going to heaven, that doesn't matter as much as they think it does. No one gets into heaven by committing a mortal sin. That is a contradiction. That is not possible. It is not how it works. Heaven is off the menu. So that leaves hell and purgatory. So on the final judgment, think of it as a guy that walks up to you and says, "This was your life. Look what you did. What do you have to say for yourself?" If one of them says, "I'm glad I did what I did, and I'm not sorry, and I'm glad all those people died," that's hell. That's hell because it's choosing to remain in mortal sin. But, that same judgment of the dead, look at your life. What do you have to say for yourself? If one of them says, "Wow, that was a lot of death. Those people in New York weren't really my enemies after all. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." Well, then they've got a shot. They've got a shot. They got a long way to go, but that remorse is a sign that there is some authentic love in their heart, and that love cannot exist in hell. So in spite of the enormous error they're guilty of, they have everything they need to begin that long and probably difficult journey to their heavenly homeland. It's all